Hello, BookTube. This is the Scholar Gentleman. Thought I'd take this moment to do my latest book report. This is take two because the answering machine went off when I was doing my first one. I am doing Larry McMurtry's Dead Man's Walk. Um, it's officially book three in the Lonesome Dove series. But chronologically speaking, in terms of the world it's depicting in the lives of Augustus McCrae and Captain Woodrow Call, it is book one. It years before uh, the aging Captain Woodrow Call and Gus McCrae left Lonesome Dove with that cattle herd to start the first cattle ranch in Montana. Um, they were wet behind the ears kids who had just joined the Texas Rangers at Gus's behest because he wanted a life of adventure. He wanted to make some cash. He wanted to spend his time whoring. Um, so we open up in the middle of their first campaign as Texas Rangers, and they're on the way to Santa Fe, um, presumably to take it over and loot it. I guess to claim it to claim it for the United States property. Excuse me. But things go horribly awry as they run into Buffalo Hump and his braves, a Comanche chief. Gus basically gets he gets pincushioned in the rear end by command by Buffalo Hump's spear, his javelin. He survives it, but the next day a whole bunch of their troops get ambushed by a bunch of troops, and they get slaughtered. They barely make it back to San Antonio with their lives. So 3 months after that, they take a break. They're recuperating, and all of a sudden, basically, a dude named Colonel Cobb, probably not a real colonel. He's pretty much just invented the rank for himself. He's forming up an expedition to go to Santa Fe again. And his express purpose is to ransack it, plunder it for riches, and of course, Augustus McCrae, in search of adventure and money, easy money, gold in the streets, silver you could just scoop up with your hands, that kind of thing. He decides to sign on. He cajoles Woodrow into signing up too, and then Gus goes and promptly falls in love with a shopkeeper's daughter named Clara Forsyth. Now, if you've read Lonesome Dove, you see where this is eventually going to lead to, but now they're just meeting, and she's just basically smitten Augustus McCrae with her sharp wit and her impish sense of humor. And then he decides that he wants to not go on this expedition to Santa Fe. He wants to marry Clara Forsyth. And you know what? He probably should have gone with that plan, because the way the trip turned out, it was a disaster from start to finish. And you've heard me compare Larry McMurtry to a horror movie writer and director, because as Caleb Cobb goes with his 400 person expedition to head on down to Santa Fe, Mexico, one mishap after another occurs. He parlays with Buffalo Hump once, and he promises his number one man's rifle to Buffalo Hump because he wanted to show his sand. So what was his name? He's a Scotsman, Captain Falconer. That's it. Well, he was a Scotsman in the miniseries on television. He refuses to give up his buffalo rifle, and Cobb shoots him in the head so he can give it to Buffalo Hump, which of course didn't go over very well with the Texas Rangers. And his leadership skills just basically suck. He's in it for himself, and that gradually becomes more and more obvious as the Indians nearly burn them off the desert, trap them on the edge of a canyon where they nearly all die. People desert, the whole thing. And the whole thing basically goes tragically, spectacularly, horribly wrong. And all along the way, they get plenty of warnings from people who know a whole lot better than they do that where they're going, there's nothing there, and they're only going to be captured if they even make it alive. And one of those warnings came from none other than a young Charlie Goodnight. when he was rescuing two kids from some Indian tribe, and I guess Captain Charles Goodnight was famously salt-tongued. He says, "You're idiots if you go that way." Period. But they do, and of course, Colonel Cobb's leadership skills. He basically turns his troop in to the quote-unquote Mexican enemies, so he can ride back to Mexico City like a hero. And of course, Corporal Call goes berserk and tips over his buggy with Generalissimo in it and Caleb Cobb. And that really sets things off on a very, very bad trajectory for our heroes. It's called Dead Man's Walk for a reason. So basically, they are captured and they are going to be marched to Mexico City, supposedly, where they'll answer for their crimes. And it's it's something like a 200-mile walk over the desert into Mexico City. And I'll just leave it there. It's you get used to McMurtry's easygoing, moseying drawl of a prose style. But make no mistake, around every corner there's death and there's carnage. And if you're not careful, you die. And that's all there is to it. Including the harrowing, I'll call it the bean jar scene towards the end, when they get captured. They're being held at the monastery. And I won't spoil anything for you, but it's very, very harrowing. It was harrowing when I saw the miniseries on DVD, and it's also very harrowing when you read it as well. And there's minor differences from the book to the miniseries, but if you want a good solid old Western tale that's brutally realistic, check out Larry McMurtry's Dead Man's Walk. I'm going to read these books in chronological order of the lives of the characters. So coming up next from this will be Comanche Moon, but I'm going to read some other things in between to simulate the passing of time, because about, I want to say, 15, 20 years passes between the books. So, yeah, highly recommend. Take care. This is the Scarlet Gentleman signing off.